Good morning, everyone. My name is Tanaya,
And my name is Nitya.
and we'll be your hosts for today. I would like to welcome our esteemed chief guests, panelists, faculty members, paper presenters, and attendees to the International Workshop on Space Policy and Roundtable on Indian Space Policy. We are truly fortunate to have in midst of us some of the most eminent personalities in the legal field. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to Honorable Shri Justice Ujjal Bhuyan, Judge of Supreme Court of India. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, sir. I would also like to introduce the dais for today. We have here with us our respected Vice Chancellor of MNLU Mumbai, Professor Dr. Dilip Ukey. We are also graced with the presence of Professor Jessica Los Banos from Indonesia and Professor Sandeepa Bhat, a figure of great significance in this collaboration.
I extend a warm welcome to our esteemed dignitaries, panelists, attendees, faculty members, and everyone who has been a part of this journey for the last 2 days. On this auspicious occasion, and to begin on a most blessed note, I would request our esteemed members of the dais to proceed towards the kindling of the lamp. Thank you to the members of the dais. Now I invite Professor Dilip Ukey, the Vice Chancellor of MNLU Mumbai, to facilitate Shri Justice Ujjal Bhuyan. I now request Professor Dilip Ukey to felicitate Miss Jessica. I request Shri Justice Ujjal Bhuyan to facilitate uh, Mr. Sandeepa Bhat.
Thank you so much. It is my distinct honor to introduce Assistant Professor Adithya Variath, who also serves as a coordinator of the Center for Research in Air and Space Law at MNLU Mumbai. He has not only been our mentor for past 2 years, but also a backbone of this center, providing the unwavering support and guidance to us. It is my profound privilege to introduce him to the podium today to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning. Honorable Your Lordship, Shri Justice Ujjan Buyal sir, Professor Dr. Dilip Ukey sir, Professor Sandeepa Bhat sir, Jessica ma'am for traveling all the way from Indonesia, and all my fellow friends, panelists, academics. Thank you so much for joining this international workshop on space policy and the roundtable on Indian space policy that we are hosting today. This event is very important for us because this is a two-day program, and yesterday we hosted an event on aviation law, and today we are moving to space law. As Professor Bhatt sir yesterday said, aviation law is completely different from space law. We are moving to a new genre today, and we'll be starting off the event with a roundtable, followed by technical sessions wherein papers would be workshopped. This event is important because we are deliberating on a very important topic today, that is the space policy, and wherein India is growing in the area of exploration and exploitation of space. It becomes very important to see how the legal regime is responding to this whole scenario. So one of our aim is to build a discussion, start a discussion, and come out with certain policy recommendations from our side. So I take this opportunity not only to welcome all of you to this workshop that we are hosting today, but we are also using this platform to actually launch something that is very close to our heart, that is the Indian Review of Air and Space Law. So I'll introduce Indian Review of Air and Space Law to all of you. This is a journal that Center for Research in Air and Space Law is publishing. And as I told you yesterday also that this is a very new center. It started around 15 months back. And over the past 12 months, we have been working in this idea of setting up a journal. And I was very grateful that we had articles from scholars around the world who contributed to the inaugural issue. And many of the contributors are present here also. For example, Sachdeva sir, who actually wrote on Indian space policy itself. So this article would be a point of discussion even today. And I'll take this opportunity to thank all the contributors, and especially Professor Sandeepa Bhat sir, who was instrumental in guiding us through this process. Professor Dilip Ukey sir, whose mastermind was it to actually set up a field of scholarship in air and space law using a platform called as this Indian Review of Air and Space Law. We are also grateful to Professor Stephen Truxal, who is the director of Institute of Air and Space Law at Leiden, who was also instrumental in getting us a few scholars from Europe who actually wrote on very interesting topics. I take this opportunity to welcome all of you and also welcome all of you in this journey of scholarship in space law. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Adithya Variath. I would now like to invite our chief guest, Honorable Shri Justice Ujjal Bhuyan, our respected Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor Sandeepa Bhat, and Assistant Professor Adithya Variath to the dais to launch our center's flagship journal, the Indian Review of Air and Space Law, Volume 1. With extreme excitement and great expectations for the journal, we would like to present inaugural copies of the journal to our esteemed dignitaries on the dais. I would now like to introduce Professor Dr. Sandeepa Bhat, the Director of the Center for Aviation and Space Laws, NUJS, Kolkata. He has been the guiding star and a compass for everyone here at the Center for Research in Air and Space Laws. It is truly an honor to have you with us here today, reinvigorated after yesterday's fruitful sessions. I would like to call upon Dr. Sandeepa Bhat to deliver the keynote address for today.
Thank you. Honorable Justice Ujjal Bhuyan, distinguished Vice Chancellor Professor Ukey, my friend and colleague Jessica, and all the dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to all of you. Since yesterday, I have been hearing so many things about my association with the Air and Space Law Center in MNLU. I should give all credit to Professor UK when he basically met me at NUJS and asked for the collaboration in the aviation and space law. And also the credit to Adithya for actually, I mean, I don't know how to express that. So he has such a kind of a regards which I haven't seen maybe, I mean, otherwise in my lifetime. So somehow actually, that is what is actually working with respect to the collaboration between NUJS and MNLU Mumbai. And I should really thank him for dedicating this journal to me. So I saw that dedication. So, but at the end of the day, actually, it's his work. And also, you can see that excellent articles which have come up actually from across the globe. I can see Blount contributing the first article, Stephen Truxal writing the foreword, then Ranjana Kaul actually writing an article like that. So Professor Sachdeva having his article therein. So it's a grand beginning to the journal. I don't think there is any possibility of a better beginning than this available for any journal in the aviation and space law. But at the same point in time, let me also caution Aditya that you need to maintain this tempo. It is not that easy to run a journal for a long period of time, especially in an area like aviation and space laws, because it's very, very narrow, and getting people writing frequently on this. I mean, probably if you are planning for 2 issues in a year, so getting at least 7 or 8 quality articles would become very, very difficult issue. So hope that actually you will be able to maintain that, and also maybe in the course of time try to get a Scopus listing so that actually it would get its own the credential. I wish all the very best for the journey from here onwards with respect to the journal, and I'm open to any kind of actually the assistance, contribution to the journal at any point in time. Now, I think I will not take too much of time, maybe a few more minutes to tell about space policy or space law. This is something which has been very close to my heart. I told yesterday itself, so when I just actually had a course like air and space law, soon after that I was clear that I would have my career in space law. When I enrolled for PhD in 2003, many people were asking, what is your area of study? I was telling space law. The very next question was that, are you researching on vacant space on the Earth? Because there was no understanding of there is something called space law with respect to outer space activities. I have to explain, and of course, most of them are the lawyers, because my colleagues and friends, most of them are the lawyers, so they didn't have the understanding. So imagine about the common people. I had to explain to them that, so this is with respect to satellites, whatever source to the space, we have the law, right? So international treaties are there, we are bound by the treaties, all those kind of things I have to explain to them. Thankfully, that is not the situation at present, at least actually with these conferences or maybe different actually the institutions offering courses. Now, we have a little bit of awareness about aviation and space laws. I repeat, space laws, aviation and space laws, right? We have a bit of an understanding. But still, a major question which crops up for many of us, or maybe those who are studying aviation or space law, what is the scope? How do we develop our career, especially in terms of space law? Since today's session is on space law, let me just actually try to clarify on the opportunities in space law. Many of you who are in LLB or maybe even postgraduate level might be thinking, what is the practical utility of space law? At best, it may be an academic deliberation, some policy aspects, so somebody might give a policy input, etc., etc. This might be the impression of some of us who are sitting in this corner of the world. When I say this corner of the world, maybe Asian part, that too, I mean, the developing countries. That is not the same situation in the developed countries, or especially those spacefaring nations like maybe United States or Canada to a certain extent, European states, European Space Agency states, or more importantly, Australia as well. There is a lot of space law practice which is going on in these countries. And each of these issues are multi-billion-dollar issues. Whatever actually the issues or disputes come up in the space sector are the multi-billion-dollar issues. Maybe in terms of space IPR, maybe in terms of space tourism issues, contracts actually between the creditors and debtors. As I was discussing about the aviation financing yesterday, space financing has got much more complications than the aviation financing. right? And that too, much more stake, much more money involved therein. Then launch facilities, launch services contracts, licensing of actually the space activities. Every state is supposed to license the space activities. What is the procedure to be followed? What are the compliance requirements? Insurance requirements, conflicts between the insurance companies and the space actors. N number of disputes are there. With the commercialization of the space activities, there are enormous number of the disputes, and there are firms which are practicing exclusively in the field of space law. $1 billion disputes, even a small percentage of that, most of the lawyers should charge a percentage, 1%, 2%, whatever it may be, right? One can imagine how much of actually the stake is involved in each of these space disputes. In India, we haven't started experiencing this too much, especially because the private space activities are very, very limited. I'm not saying that there is no private space activity, but the private space activities in terms of the launch and the return has not started. We are still with respect to incidental or ancillary space activities. We have direct television broadcasting, remote sensing, data sharing, different other kind of actually the space applications in India. But we don't have the direct launch and return facility owned by the private players. Unlike in maybe United States or even Australia for that matter actually. So we don't have such kind of actually the launch facilities owned by the private players. 2020 Government of India has actually opened up the ISRO facility itself for the private launches. Private players can launch their own satellite as per the 2020 developments, and 2023 policy has also come up with respect to that actually, which we are going to critique in the next roundtable. Whatever it may be, what I'm trying to say is that the hardcore space activities have not started in India for the purpose of having multiple disputes which might come before the court of law. Still, we have an eye-opener in the anthrax divorce dispute. Many of you must have heard about it. It's a more than a decade's dispute. I don't know how many of you know that actually there are two, ICC award, and then there are two investor state the arbitration award actually. One is of 10,000 crores against Government of India, and the two other investor state arbitration actually the 5,000 crores. So 15,000 crores liability has been slashed against the India in the anthrax divorce case. 15,000 crores. One case, one single case with respect to cancellation of the 2G spectrum. Right? So one can imagine actually what is the magnitude of the dispute. Of course, then it went to the Supreme Court. There are a lot of actually the issues in the Supreme Court. Thankfully, there was some kind of a decision with respect to the fraudulent activities of the DWAS Corporation. So under that, actually, the decision has been made by the Supreme Court. If that is not the case, one can imagine actually how much of the money would have been shelled from Government of India. Government of India means our state exchequer, our tax-paid money, right? So one can imagine about that. So that's the magnitude of the space disputes. Already it has kick-started in actually the countries like United States, European states, and Australia. And probably in India, one of the things which the private players are waiting for is a national space legislation. Because unless and until there is a law, there is no clarity with respect to multiple issues which are involved in terms of the space activities. Maybe in terms of licensing, what requirements are there. Maybe in terms of fixation of liability, is it a limited liability, unlimited liability, what exactly is applicable to the private players. These are the things which the private players are waiting for the clarification. And it was also very clear because a couple of us have been part of actually the drafting committee of the national space legislation. Professor Tyagi is also here, so we were part of it actually. Professor Sachdeva is also here actually. So 2022, we have prepared the draft, and also when we had the conferences in actually Bangalore with respect to stakeholder consultation, most of the stakeholders' concerns were in terms of actually the licensing, in terms of the liability, how much of insurance coverage, all these kind of other stuff. Once we get a clarity with respect to these things through a legislation, I'm pretty sure that even in India, there would be a lot of private space activities. A lot of private space activities means a lot of disputes. A lot of disputes means a lot of scope for lawyering. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the glimpse into the space law and its development. We are forever grateful for your support. Now we'd like to invite Professor Jessica Banos, an esteemed expert in international law and business law. Ma'am is also a distinguished member of both Philippines Bar and International Institute of Space Law. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Professor Jessica Banos for this special address.
Honorable Justice of the Indian Supreme Court, Justice Ujjal, Bhuyan, Dr. Dilip Ukey, Dr. Sandeepa Bhat, and Professor Adithya Variath, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Faculty of Law of the Universitas Pilita Harapan, I would like to thank the organizers again. I did yesterday already, but I would like to thank you again. I'm very honored to join you all today in this Faculty of Law of the the organizers again, but I would like to thank you again. I did yesterday already. I'm very honored. Faculty of Law of the I did yesterday already. I'm very honored. Faculty of Law of the Faculty of Law of the Faculty of Law of the Faculty of Law of the
Next, we have Professor Dr. Dilip Ukey, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, without whose support none of this would have been possible. I call upon him to deliver the presidential address.
Honorable Shri Justice Ujjal Bhuyan sir, the Judge, Supreme Court of India, Professor Jessica from Indonesia, Professor Sandeepa Bhat from NUGS, Kolkata, all other resource persons, including Dr. Sachdeva, Aditya, my colleagues, and dear participant friends. A very happy and good morning to all of you. I take this opportunity to welcome all of you, and especially Honorable Justice Bhuyan sir, who had accepted our invitation to come over here despite his very hectic and busy schedule and enlighten us even yesterday as well as today. And I thank him for guiding us for these 2 days, and moreover for today, which was rather unplanned, unscheduled one. But our request to please come over here and spare some time was accepted by him, sir. Thank you so much, as well as madam. Today's event, yesterday we had a aviation laws, and today it is a space policy. The two events which are being organized by 3 NLUs, Maharashtra National University, Mumbai, Center for Air and Space Law, the Center of Aviation and Space Law, NUJS, Kolkata, and then Professor V.S. Mani, Center of Air and Space Law, GNLU. I also accord my warm welcome and express my special thanks to Professor Sandeepa Bhat, a mainstay and backbone of the center. As all of us know that India has launched Chandrayaan-3, which has had a soft landing, that too on a south pole of the moon. I think our Center of Air and Space Law, taking into account yesterday's conference as well as book launch, today's release of journal and the conference, the forthcoming book on space law to be published by Oxford University Press, I think Center of Air and Space Law, MNLU Mumbai, has a soft landing with the help of the Vikram, Professor Sandeepa Bhat. Dear friends, particularly today's roundtable of space policy assumes the significance, not because of only a space policy drafted by Government of India 2023, but even many of you must have been aware, and experts definitely not only aware, they know well, they must have deliberated upon, the India signing the Artemis Accord that gives a lot of scope and space for space law experts to deliberate, to discuss, to debate, and then come out with something as such. As we know that the Indian Space Policy 2023, which has been developed as a comprehensive and flexible framework that embodies the vision for reform approved by the Cabinet. It sets the stage for dynamic growth and progress in India's space sector, creating a solid foundation for the future. This roundtable aims to achieve two main objects. One is to critically review India's Space Policy 2023 and its alignment with the country's overall development goals. And secondly, develop recommendations for the future directions of India's space policy. The roundtable is expected to provide a valuable insight into India's space policy and its future directions. The recommendations generated from the roundtable will definitely help to inform policymakers, industry leaders, and other stakeholders in India's space sector. The roundtable will also help to foster collaborations among different stakeholders and contribute to the growth and development of India's space program. The roundtable on Indian space policy will also provide an opportunity to assess India's space policy and its alignment with the country's overall development goals. The discussions and recommendations which will be generated from the roundtable will help to inform the future direction of India's space program and contribute to the growth and development of the country's space sector. I am equally excited that the journal which has been released just now, wherein papers which have been contributed, as well as in today's roundtable, the papers which will be presented in space policy workshop in these technical sessions. I'm equally happy to see the release of this journal, and moreover eager to know that kind of the presentations and discussions which will take place during these discussions. This milestone is a testament of the dedication and hard work of our team of researchers led by Mr. Adithya, and great support of Professor Sandeepa Bhat of NUJS, as well as even contributors and editors who have tirelessly worked to bring you a comprehensive and insightful collection of articles in the field of air and space law. As we celebrate this momentous occasion, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on the impact of this collaboration between these three NLUs. It is one of its kind of initiative. I have no doubt that this workshop will be a guiding light for researchers and legal professionals navigating the intricate legal landscapes of space explorations. I extend my best wishes to all the participants and presenters for meaningful and fruitful deliberations and discussions which will be really useful for the future generations, all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Dilip Ukey, for that insightful address. With that, I would also like to thank Honorable Shri Justice Ujjal Bhuyan for being present here today. Your Lordship, it is a great honor to have you amongst us. I would like to humbly invite you to the podium to deliver the much-awaited Chief Guest address.
Professor Ukey, the Vice Chancellor of Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai, Professor Sandeepa Bhat from NEJS, Kolkata, distinguished Madam Jessica from Indonesia, all the participants and dear students. A very good morning to all of you. Well, we all know that the infiniteness of the universe and the vastness of the sky has always been a matter of curiosity and of mankind. Generations of poets, generations of writers have been inspired by the power of the sun, the grace of the moon, and the vast emptiness of the space. Hindi cinema has romanticized the moon. So many songs, popular songs, iconic songs have revolved around the moon and the others. In fact, our daily lives also are to a great extent regulated, modulated by the placement of the celestial bodies, where to start, when to end, where to go, where not to go. So, for ages, space has been beckoning mankind to come, explore the great emptiness, vast emptiness of the space. So it was therefore quite but natural that in 1957, the then USSR launched the world's first satellite, Sputnik 1. Possibly that was the triggering point of the space race, consequently the space studies, etc. Soon thereafter, Mr. Yuri Gagarin became the first astronaut to travel to space, 1961. Neil Armstrong became the first human being to land on the moon by literally doing moonwalking on July 20th, 1969. At that time, the Cold War was at its peak between USA and the USSR under two blocs. Because of the tension between the two superpowers, which had spilled over onto space and space-related activities, the United Nations had to step in and had to resolve that developments in outer space, had to resolve that the developments in outer space should be devoted exclusively for peaceful and scientific purposes. It expressed its commitment on the peaceful use of outer space. In 1967, the Treaty on Principles Governing Activities of States in the Exploration and Use of Outer Space, including the Moon and other celestial bodies, was signed. This treaty, which we may refer to as the Outer Space Treaty, mandates that the signatory states must carry out exploration or use of the outer space for the benefit of every nation on the planet. No nation can own the space, the moon, or any other celestial body. An astronaut belonging to any nation is an ambassador of mankind in outer space. In essence, this treaty highlights against monopolization of space by rich and powerful countries. It underlines the importance and necessity for democratization of the space. As Dr. Ambedkar used to define democracy or democratic way of life as respect and reverence for fellow human beings, democratization of outer space would mean respect for all nations and their integrity in all respects, irrespective of their size, economic status, and scientific capability. This Outer Space Treaty has been followed by several agreements and conventions to give effect to various provisions of the treaty. The Rescue Agreement of 1968 requires the signatory states to take all possible steps in the rescue of astronauts in distress. It also requires the states to assist the launching state in tracing and recovering space objects landing on our Earth outside the territory of the launching state. Then we have the Liability Convention of 1972. It is the Convention on International Liability for damage caused by space objects. It fastens liability on the launching state to pay compensation for damage caused in any other country by falling of space objects. In 1974, there was the Convention on Registration of Objects Launched into Outer Space. It provides for maintenance of a register of objects launched into outer space by different countries, which is accessible by all the signatory states. It is the duty of all the states to provide the information to be registered. Though the agreement governing the activities of states on the moon and other celestial bodies was signed in 1979, it came into force only in 1984. The essence and the provisions of the Outer Space Treaty have been extended to the moon and other celestial bodies. The moon and the other celestial bodies are to be used for peaceful purpose only, and that there should be no environmental disruption or degradation on such bodies due to space activities. The moon and the other celestial bodies do not belong to any nation, any one nation, but are the common property of the entire mankind. Coming to India, from the days of Vikram Sarabhai, India has come a long way. In India, the Department of Science is the nodal agency for space activities. Indian Space Research Organization is managed by the Department of Science, Government of India. India has launched numerous satellites, including 104 satellites on a single day, and very recently, the successful landing of Chandrayaan on a hitherto unexplored part of the moon. All these have led to marked improvement in telecommunications, meteorology, navigation, oceanography, predicting natural disasters, so on and so forth. In 2017, the Space Activities Bill was introduced in Parliament. The reasons and object necessitating a Space Act in India was highlighted in the bill. And it says, over a period, with the logical evolution of space activities in India, from conceptual, experimental, operational, commercial, and further expansion phases, the demands for space systems, applications, and services for national needs and beyond have been rapidly growing. This scenario also encourages participation of Indian industry and service providers at much higher levels in all-round space activities under the technical guidance and authorization of the central government through the Department of Space. Further, a few startup companies in India are showing interest in engaging in space systems activities. Commercial opportunities in space activities and services nationally and internationally demand higher order of participations by private sector agencies. This situation demands for a necessary legal environment for orderly performance and growth of space sector. Then it refers to the Constitution of India, particularly to Articles 51 and 253, by which there is an obligation on the Government of India for implementation of international treaties. Thus, there is a need for national space legislation for supporting the overall growth of space activities in India. This would encourage enhanced participation of non-governmental private sector agencies in space activities in India in compliance with international treaty obligations, which is becoming very relevant today. Unfortunately, for reasons we don't know, the bill lapsed. But from a reading of the bill, though it was no doubt a very welcome start, what is noticeable is that there is overemphasis on the regulation or control by the central government on all space-related activities. There was very little play or scope for the private sector to step in so far as space activities were concerned. Though India is a signatory to the treaties, conventions, and agreements, and though there is a constitutional obligation to ratify and implement such treaties, conventions, and agreements, a comprehensive legislation has not been enacted till date. Despite India being a proud participant in the space journey, we still lack a statutory framework. What we now have is the Indian Space Policy of 2023, which will be discussed during the course of the day. Its preamble says that the Government of India has unleashed reforms in space domain in 2020, opening the doors for enhanced participation of non-government entities in carrying out end-to-end activities in the space domain and with an aim to provide them a level playing field. Subsequent to these reforms, government seeks to provide regulatory certainty to space activities by various stakeholders in order to create a thriving space ecosystem. The Indian Space Policy 2023 has thus been formulated as an overarching, composite, and dynamic framework to implement the reform vision approved by the Cabinet. It is actually a vision document. This policy is actually a vision document laying down the strategy and the roadmap to be followed by the non-government entities, Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, Indian Space Research Organization, Department of Science, and the public sector undertaking New Space India Limited. But I doubt whether a policy framework by itself will be adequate when we are heading towards a space regime and in tune with the international community. I think it is essential that we must have a statutory framework which will bring in transparency, which will bring in certainty in all space-related activities. Friends, I was a student at that point of time when the then Prime Minister of India asked our own astronaut, Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, as to how India looked from the space. And his reply was, Sara jahan se acha. Indeed, ours is a beautiful land, inhabited by beautiful but diverse people, yet firmly maintaining unity in diversity. Overarching object of our space program is to enrich our country and thereby our people, and by extension, the global community. Our constitution envisions a just and humane society. And as I said yesterday, as we embark on the journey onto the space and the space laws, we must embrace reasoning and rationality. We must shed superstitious beliefs and instead be guided by science and technology. This is where our future lies. Let us use space exploration and attune our related legal framework to empower our country, enrich our citizenry, to build a truly just, human, democratic, and an all-inclusive society. As Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore had said, we need to unlearn, we need to unshackle ourselves, break narrow domestic walls, and embrace humanity as we march onto space. Thank you very much, and I wish and pray that this seminar will be successful and achieve the object for which it is being organized. And I must congratulate the Center for Research in Air and Space Law for publishing the first volume of review of air and space law. Thank you very much for inviting me here, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Disclaimer. Actually, I mentioned that we have been part of actually the drafting the national space legislation. It is not the 2017 bill. I think I should actually clarify, because 2017 bill has been terrible. Sir has actually just pointed out in between. So whatever actually loopholes were there in the 2017 bill has been tried to be addressed in actually the last bill. We have done it in 2022. We don't know though the status of that as of now. And in fact, I have critiqued on the 2017 bill, which is available in the New Space Journal. Right, so Marian Labert New Space Journal, I have actually decoded every part of that to show how exactly it is a terrible piece of legislation. Right, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. Now I'd like to call upon Assistant Professor Amana Khare to deliver the vote of thanks.
Respected dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, participants, faculty members, students, ladies and gentlemen. I stand here today with a great honor to present the vote of thanks for the inaugural session of the International Workshop on Space Policy. It is said that well begin is half done. So the inaugural program was in a way a good thing for us, and it will definitely help us to make the other program a success. At the onset, I would like to thank Honorable Shri Justice Ujjal Bhuyan, Justice Supreme Court of India, for taking out time from his busy schedule and gracing the event today. Thank you, sir, for coming. I would like to thank Professor Dilip Ukey, sir, our Vice Chancellor, for encouraging and motivating us to be on our toes and carry out these activities of the center. I would like to thank Professor Sandeepa Bhat, sir, and Professor Jessica Banos for being instrumental in our journey. I want to thank Adithya Variath for spearheading this center, and all the students who were working tirelessly, sleeplessly for 3-4 days, and making this event a success. Thank you all the participants for joining us. Thank you everyone. Thank you. Now I would request everyone to stand up for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you so much. We would resume with our roundtable conference after a short break of 5 minutes. Thank you.